Hey, free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So, for the long-awaited, I don't know whether this is long-awaited or not, but for this video, we are going to talk a little bit more about Leora and my own final thoughts about her. Just a really quick, maybe like 2 weeks worth of experience using her in many different content, right? So, here are my final thoughts on her, which could possibly help you make the decision whether, should you go for Leora or not, all that kind of stuff. But there's some things that I need to say at the start. So a lot of people are asking me, should I summon for Leora or should I summon for Gaius at the start? And this is usually a beginner's question. My answer to that is I would prefer you go for Leora. And I'm not saying that Gaius is bad, no. But what I'm saying is it might be a better idea for you to go for Leora first and then get Clara in the wish pool. And then when 2 months comes around, right? That will be about the time where 2 months comes around. That is going to be a great time for you to pick Gaius afterwards. So that is just my general advice. Please do not follow it if you do not trust me entirely. Trust your own instincts, but this is just like entirely my own opinion on the matter at least. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking a little bit more about her strengths and her weaknesses as well. So in terms of her strengths, there is just a lot of strengths. So she don't need skill ups to function perfectly because her first skill, as you can see here, at the start of combat, you reset all of her abilities. So in terms of spamming in like various content, like let's say the tower content or Chronos for example, going wave to wave to wave, you're always going to have your skills up and ready, which is really, really amazing. So if you have never used Gaius before, this is very similar to Gaius, but without needing skill ups at all. It's a very big deal. So she has skill spam, she's also unkillable because she has a lot of buffs on herself. She has 2 turns of invincibility on herself, which is like insane. It's so good for a DPS Esper, and she has standoff as well. So she is really strong as a DPS Esper, and because of how much output she has on her kit, as you can see here, her burst output, right? Due to the amount of output that she has, you can actually forego some attack power and pump it into, I don't know, either more speed or more tanky stats, or maybe more resistances. It is super easy for you to build Leora. And of course, she's also used in the fastest K16 teams. Let's take a look real quick. So over at the leaderboard for Chronos, we can see that the top few teams, right, they are all running Leora comps. And the reason why they are running Leora comps is because she scales freaking well at R4, at least for Chronos itself, and that allows her to cleave super fast and deal a shit ton of damage. So that's the reason why you see her used way up at the top. But in my opinion, she is more of an R4 Esper than an R2 Esper. But you can absolutely use her at R0, it's perfectly fine. As you can see here, Athena is using her at R0 and he has an average turn of 8.2, which is like what the hell, right? But obviously a lot of it is because of the R6 Brewster, his assist attacks goes crazy and all that. But anyway, the final strength will be using her in Knockout. And now let's move on to her weaknesses, which I am really trying very hard to squeeze weaknesses out of her. There's very few. So her typing is a problem if you're talking about PvP. Buff blocker is also going to be a problem. And Elaine is also one of her weaknesses, which is like really not much. So in terms of her weaknesses, she has very, very few. Okay, and now let's start with the stories and events. She's going to be excellent in the stories because she's cleaving through different waves without needing to worry about her cooldowns. Sonic Rift as well. I use her as my main Sonic Rift farmer now so that I don't have to put equipment onto Mona because I don't use Mona for any other content. Cube Miracle, she is average. She's just decent because you do not need so much of her buffs. For Cube Miracle, you can just blitz through the whole thing really fast with like other better, stronger DPS. Or even like Jiangman for example. I think Jiangman is probably like the best choice for Cube Miracle. In Furnace and Flow Runner, she's like kind of average. She is really good at single target damage, but she don't really bring a lot to counter exactly what Infernus and Flow Runner are all about. And she sucks in Wind Striker because of her typing, and she does not cleanse poisons and all that, so no point over there. And as for Shimmerer, she is slightly below average because you kind of need to have buff blocker for Shimmerer, but yeah, who cares about all these content, right? I mean, that's for the end game players, okay? For the early game players, I know these content can be a little bit challenging. But yeah, so these are like my rankings for these content. And now moving on to the Ritual Miracles, we have Chronos at 5. Obviously, she is the best Esper right now for Chronos. Like in terms of keeping your teammates alive, making sure their runs are super safe, doing a lot of damage, right? Especially at R4. But of course, we don't talk about R4 on this very Christian free-to-play channel. And then next, we have Shadowfire. So she's going to be ranked 4 because her AoE damage is not a crazy amount. She's not the same as Zora with like a lot of AoE damage. Her AoE damage is pretty decent because she has good scaling, but it's just one single hit. But the thing is, if she's at R4, that changes a little bit. So her AoE damage, yes, is still going to be the same, but after killing all the adds, her crit damage is actually going to go up by another 45%, which is really good for dealing damage in the damage phase because after killing them with an AoE attack, you might use your second skill to do big damage onto the boss afterwards. Now moving on to Sentinel Hunt, she's actually going to strive pretty decently at the Dark Starlord for the mere fact that she has the crit rate down on her kit. So this is the only Esper that has this effect, and why this is so important is because Dark Starlord actually steals buffs whenever he crits your team. So if you're able to reduce his crit this way, that is actually going to help you with like the safety of your runs and just making sure that the boss does not steal your immunity buff. Now moving on to Spatial Tower, this is like really quite brainless. She is really good for clearing multiple floors or multiple waves. So Spatial Tower is going to be easy, Temporal Tower is going to be super easy. Infinity Tower is probably not going to be the case because for Infinity Tower, you don't really care too much about dealing raw damage. You want to care more about, okay, I mean, you might want to use raw damage. So she's actually okay. Okay, you know what? I think this is a little bit too little. I think I'll give her an average score. But I think in general, in Infinity Tower, you want to make use of stun kits. You want to make use of Anesidora for DPS. More focus on control. So like for example, Jiangman, that's a really good choice for you to have a mixture of control and DPS. And not so much of Espers like Leora. Okay, I'm not sure why there was a glitch over here. We couldn't see her face for a little bit, but yeah. Now next, Calamity Island. I'm gonna rate her a little bit lower because all she does is just raw damage, right? But for Calamity Island, especially for floors 200 onwards, she is probably not gonna strive as well as, for example, Embla or Nama or maybe even Brewster. These are the Espers you want to use if you want to use the raw damage approach. Otherwise, I think using poison Espers like maybe Ife is going to be a little bit more effective when the enemies have a shit ton of HP that she's probably not going to be able to bruise her through. Now in terms of PvP, I think she's just great throughout. Although her typing kind of sucks, but the fact that she protects your teammates and she has the invincibility on herself is a really good thing to have. So she's pretty decent in Point War, she's really good in Knockout, especially when you have her at R4, and she's fantastic in the warm-up matches and holo battles just because of the buff that she can provide to herself. Just keeping herself alive is going to give you a lot of utility because if the enemy cannot kill your DPS Esper, then your DPS Esper is just going to go crazy. So all in all, based on the current settings that I've set, right, I've checked all these boxes. You can of course check whichever you want to, and I will share this Excel spreadsheet as well. But all in all, she averages at a C tier for me as an endgame player. So these are the selections that I chose because I'm an endgame player. Now obviously this Esper rating is going to change depending on your needs. So if you do not care too much about certain content which she sucks at, like let's say Ferbetel Encounter Sonica, right? If you don't care too much about Sentinel Hunt, her score is probably going to go up by a little bit. So maybe this rating is actually a little bit too strict. I wouldn't really consider her a C tier Esper at all. I'll probably consider her minimally an A tier Esper. But yeah, anyway, so that's it for Leora. I will talk more about Elaine in the next video. And of course, I'll discuss Camille and Yude as well in a separate video. Maybe in like a couple of days time. We'll see about that. But yeah, anyway, let me know if you have any other thoughts pertaining to Leora. Leave your comments down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Anyway, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to give a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.